But Garrett, I thought you were never gonna watch True Detective.
I didn't. I lied. Ha 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 ha.
Oh no! Now what are we gonna do? Now we're dug in the shit.
What do we
There's
do
nowhere
till
to go.
then? I'm just gonna make stuff up
Yeah.
and pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
Well, you never do know what you're talking about, so there's that.
Well, it's not that I was never going to watch the show, but I did not have it pushed to the forefront of things to watch until I was forced at gunpoint to purchase HBO to watch this little show that no one's heard of, Game of Thrones. And since I already have access to all the shows on HBO, I decided to watch the first season of True Detective.
Wow!
And that's all I have to say about that.
And he hated it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on an episode of the Digital Drive-In Podcast, where we talk about some of our favorite movies and also, I guess, TV shows and why they are so awesome. And, because that podcast has never been done before. My name is Alex. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Garrett. And I couldn't think of an adjective, Garrett, to put in front of you this time. So you've been spared this time, and spared from the adjective, but not from the ridiculous cult that's coming to kidnap you tonight.
Okay. Good luck.
And Garrett, what exactly are we talking about this week? Because it's not a movie. It's something different, isn't it?
I mean, it's sort of film-esque in the sense that it's the same writer and same director across. It's like a long-form movie.
Sure.
So, since I'm the new watcher of the series, what is your experience with True Detective?
Oh God, I'm not prepared for this. Typically I'm the one that's asking the questions. This is how it feels, isn't it?
I switched it up on you.
I watched True Detective, I think the year after it came out. I had watched Fargo around that time, and my buddy had watched True Detective, and then we were both trying to convince the other to watch the other's show for like a year straight. And I was saying Fargo season 1 was the greatest thing ever. He was saying True Detective season 1 was the greatest thing ever. Eventually, we both ended up watching the inverse shows around the same time, and we both flipped on that opinion. And now that I say True Detective season 1 is better than Fargo season 1, and he's flipped on that. So since then, I've been a almost mega fan, I guess, of True Detective. So this would be probably 2015, 2016, maybe somewhere in there. And watched it again, watched the second season. I've only seen that one once, but I bought this one twice because I have a steelbook too, which is awesome. And then I watched it a couple more times. And season 3 was last year, so I watched that. It was good. And then that's it. Fuck you. What's your experience with it, Garrett? Why did you? You already said you. Never mind.
You kept telling me to watch it, and I finally did.
And what was your general thoughts on it, though?
I thought that it's a very well done show. I especially liked the main actors in the show. I thought the character development and it going to different time periods and everything was a neat idea, and I thought they pulled it off very well. The direction, with a few exceptions, is pretty plain. I mean, it's what you would expect in an HBO show, but it didn't like do anything that knocked my socks off or made me go wow or anything.
Okay.
And the story, as far as procedurals go, is about as vanilla as it gets. Still well done. It's not like I'm trying to say that it's a negative, but it's not necessarily a positive either.
Sure.
But I really like the characters, and I thought especially the main two actors, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, did an outstanding job.
Which is big for you because you don't like McConaughey very much.
That's correct. There's very few things that I think he actually is an interesting character. It's like this and Killer Joe are like the two.
Mm-hmm. And this was kind of around the, McConaissance. This was in, I don't even know, what was the first year of this? 2015, eh?
Yeah, but
15,
it was
16.
it's like in that era. Yeah,
Mhm. So it was while he was coming back, and then he slowly disappeared again. So who
imagine
knows?
that.
And
It's
we will
almost
be
like it wasn't
doing
real.
what's that?
Nothing. Go on.
All right. And we will, as always, be doing full spoilers on this. I know it's maybe important to drop it at the top because it is a TV show. If anybody was thinking we were going to do something
Yeah.
different with it.
Why are you listening to a podcast about a TV show if you haven't fucking seen it?
It's only 8 hours long. There's only 8 episodes. It's real easy to burn through. I mean, I highly recommend it, obviously, but at least the first season. I liked the second season and I liked the third season, but I don't think either of them really hold a candle to this one. For various reasons, but they're both still very interesting and worth the watch, I think. Especially season 2. Season 3 is closer to this one in tone, but I really like that the writer tried to do different styles of detective stories, and I wish season 2 was received better, so he kept on that train instead of just doing a redo for 3. But where do you want to start? Story, or do you want to start with the characters?
I think start with the characters.
So what did you think of them then? Who are they?
So Rust Cole is Matthew McConaughey's character,
Uh-huh.
which is I think is such an interesting name.
Rust Cole.
And I think I will mention this probably more so in the story, but like in my head to be able to wrap around like the obvious flaws in the story, I basically was like, what if this took place in the 50s or the 60s and this was like black and white TV? Then I like really got into it
Right.
a bit more. And so with that aspect of it, I mean he's very much so an old school kind of guy.
Mhm.
He's very philosophical, he's very straightforward. He doesn't necessarily have like emotional baggage in certain aspects as you first get to know him. Then you realize what kind of depth of character he has. But it's like I even read a thing where they said that since the series takes place across multiple years, that Matthew McConaughey kept like a notebook of the emotional stages that his character was in at that time, so he knew how to portray it. And I think that kind of study of characterization comes across in the performance,
Right.
and you can tell like he really understood who this guy is to his core. And I think that that's a really important thing that comes across, and it doesn't necessarily have everything to do with the writer or the director. That's like an actor sort of a thing.
Sure.
So I thought he did a really good job, but just having that kind of a solid character, he needs someone else to work off of, which Woody Harrelson, who is a completely different type of person and has different moral views and different character traits and flaws, and he does that so super well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about kind of whereas Rust kind of seems to keep all his emotions inward. I'm trying to, what was his name?
Marty.
I don't know why I can't remember that in Back
That's
to the
fine.
Future. Okay. So, you know, Marty is more emotional and outward and kind of is spontaneous in the fact that he like does what his urges tell him to do.
Right.
And he's not necessarily super observant and different things, but it's like even though the two characters maybe on paper don't seem like they match, they're almost like two parts of a jigsaw puzzle that just kind of work well. Their strengths work well together and their weaknesses work separately together. And I think it's like it's interesting to put those two types of characters together in this type of a thing.
Sure. And I
I feel
think
like
Rust especially
I've
is
talked for an hour, so go
I
ahead.
feel like Rust especially is a very unique and interesting character, which is I think why probably why he's named Rust Cole, because it's kind of like memorable. But I like his sort of philosophical tangents, I suppose, that he goes on a lot, especially in the earlier episodes, I would say, as they're just introducing each other, Rust and Marty on this case. And I love like the line where it kind of, I think it's in the first episode, and it perfectly sums up the two kind of characters they are, where where Rust has this big long tangent, and then Marty just replies, "Well, stop saying odd shit." Just like stop. And it's really interesting. Like you said, to see these two characters and actors bounce off each other, and I think I don't know for certain if the parts were written specifically for them, but it really feels like they were. I think both characters really work to the strengths of both actors. Like you said, with Woody Harrelson and Marty being a little more like outroverted with the emotion and such. I think Woody Harrelson's a little bit more over the top at times than McConaughey. It's interesting, I think.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
like
and that's one of
Harrelson
the things
outside.
too. Like Woody Harrelson is like has especially started his career as being like a comedian, and you don't necessarily think of him having any kind of an acting range, but he's actually really, really good at portraying characters and making them
Mhm.
believable. So it's like a lot of the things it has to do with timing, and a comedian has to work really hard on the timing of their jokes, and it's like Woody knows when to push that a little bit more and to be funnier, and he also knows when to play the straight man and allow Russ to get in the things that
Mhm.
he needs to. So it's like I just think as actors they work well against each other.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we'll probably end up spending a lot of time on these two. We can talk next about their arcs or something. And I think
Yeah,
that'll check off a couple of the boxes as well. The arcs, of course, will take us through the story a little bit, um, and maybe through some of the writing as well as we do that. Um, so maybe before we dive into the two arcs that Rust and Marty kind of have, uh, should we talk maybe about the supporting roles and some of the other characters in there, just to get them out of the way, so that we know who they're kind of referring to throughout the
sure.
conversation?
Yeah, I maybe I should pull up what the names are. I have a terrible time with characters' names.
Yeah, I can't remember some of them in this. I don't know why. Obviously Rust and Marty are easy to remember, but we'll start with Michelle Monaghan's role, I guess. What did you think of her performance, I guess, as Marty's wife? And what did you think of that character and how she kind of reacts to some of the
Yeah,
situations that they're in and such?
I think like the female characters in general are interesting because they all have a depth and a power to them. I don't know if it's like an HBO thing where their female characters are
Sure.
like really strong. Um but it's like she brings like a realistic portrayal to the woman. She's not just the cop's wife, which a lot of these shows just kind of like pigeonhole them that, but she, as the story progresses, takes like almost a much more like forefront to where she's more of like a co-star rather than
Sure.
just being like an extra in the background.
She has an entire
And
episode too to herself
right.
for like
Yeah. So I mean
narration.
it's like supporting, like it literally means that. Like if they're not there, the story structure wouldn't even hold together. So I think her being her own person and having her own wants and desires, and when those aren't met, she goes out and gets them, or tries to anyway, and I just think that is interesting and she plays a good job.
Yeah, I definitely think that like you said, without having her in that role, character's name, um the whole thing kind of would fall apart. I think she does a great job whipping Marty into shape throughout the earlier episodes, but as it kind of deteriorates, and of course there's Marty's got his own vices and stuff, and as they come to life, which we'll get to, um I think she did a great job of sort of kicking him to the curb. And I thought the most interesting aspect was her and Rust's relationship and how they ended up kind of doing it and all that. It
Mhm.
was something that I, at least when I saw it for the first time, didn't really see coming, but on subsequent watches, it's kind of like a very
Yeah,
interesting
it's
moment.
pretty obvious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's obvious, but at the same time, it's like super. I think important to all three of the characters at that moment happens, because especially after they do get it on, they're both just fucking pissed at each other for doing it at all.
Yeah, and it's like with the character development side of things, like things don't really come out of left field. It's like it's stuff that they've set up and it makes sense for the characters to be going in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you can say about the plot itself, that's one thing, but it's like the character decisions and the complexities of those and the motivations behind the decisions they make, whether or not they're good decisions or bad decisions, I think all of it kind of fits and makes sense within the world that they're doing. And that's one of the things. I mean, it's noirish type archetypes
Mm-hmm.
because the whole thing is about how do things unravel, how do things, regardless of how well they're planned or executed, how they fall apart, how one mistake can cause everything to be upturned. It's like all of those types of things are in this type of characterization, and I like all of that because it feels more real.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess off of that point, then Marty's vices, like we were saying, is that he cheats on his wife, which again is this. I don't want to use the word stereotypical because that sounds kind of negative, but it is. This happens kind of a lot in with this kind of character, I think. What did you think of that kind of arc that happens? I guess with first, I'm gonna butcher her last name, but Alexandria Daddario, and then later the other one I can't remember because she doesn't have a big scene. Like,
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing is he obviously has a type, and it's like there's that saying like don't stick it in crazy,
right.
but it's interesting. There's like this power struggle, and it's like some of it is an emotional thing, some of it is a psychological thing, where it's like these guys that are like, because they're police officers and they're like gatekeeping for the criminals not to infest this town, but they have their own vices, they have their own problems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, Rust, like, regardless of the problems that he has, he's always that same kind of person. You can rely on him to be that kind of individual. Marty just kind of like shifts back and forth and he's unreliable. But it's interesting they have that conversation where it's like his wife tells him, I thought you were going to change, but it ends up like no matter what it is that he says or what it is that he does, he really doesn't ever change. And that's almost like a Kubrickian way of looking at human characters. And I thought that was very interesting. So it's like, yeah, you know, the girls are hot eye candy, but they're also like really crazy and they're young and he knows that they're not going to last, but he like has something inside him that he needs to have that fulfillment that he can't get any other way. And I just think that's an interesting character thing that they portrayed really realistically.
I think for him it was sort of a past his prime kind of thing too, and he's just trying to feel young again, feel like he once was. Because, and now correct me if I'm wrong, having just watched it, but I believe that Marty and his wife were together for a very, very long time, if not like high school kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of that clinging on to that mentality still that he has years later,
Right.
of that kind of boyish, immature qualities of, physicality of sex rather than settling down and all of that. And I think that kind of conversed with some of the ways that Russ talks about love and sex and all of that kind of stuff is also interesting because they're at odds essentially within those things, but at the same time kind of not. Rust is very materialistic about things.
Right.
Um so while they may be opposed in the sense of Marty has a family and does talk about love and settling down and all that kind of stuff, Rust is, well, for other reasons, I guess, with his daughter, totally opposed to the idea of settling down. I don't know.
Yeah. His daughter is just like him, and the
Right.
problems that his daughter has are the same problems that he has, but he can't see it. He can't
Right.
see himself in her, and he doesn't understand the decisions that she's making, but she's literally living out the same kind of life that he wants to and tries to recapture that youth.
Mm-hmm. And what else other than the killer? I was gonna do him last.
I didn't hear one thing you just said.
Hey, what about that scene, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean there
While we're
are.
on, while we're on the
It's.
topic of cheating on your wife, that's a
I
fucking
mean,
scene and a half, ain't it?
this is an adult show, and I like that they show it
Mm-hmm.
realistically, like it would actually happen. I
Right.
I think that gives it that measure of reality that pushes it into being more interesting than cutting away for everything.
And at the same time, I don't think it's very overdone either. It's
No,
off the top, and then I think there's
it's
one
not
thing later
pornographic.
on. That's it. Yeah. Well, it's not constant either. There's not one in every single episode. There's one, I think, episode 2,
Right.
and maybe episode like 6 or 7, and that's not 7 because that's when they jump ahead. 6, I think. But it's like you said, it's an adult show, and they make that very, very clear. I think from the first scene, even with the
Right.
brutal crime scene as well. Which I love that opening scene too. It's such a great way, I think, to start your show with imagery like that, and then having the two characters be introduced in a way where they're kind of at odds with each other, but at the same time working together at the crime scene. I know it's like you said, it's all
Right.
very standard when I talk about it like this, but if you've seen the show, if you're listening to this, and hopefully you have, you probably know what I'm talking about. And I think that all comes from the writing, is why it's so interesting off the top of the head. I think you used the word pulpy in the dialogue as well when you were describing it to me, where it's got that
Right.
kind of snappiness in between itself, and everybody's kind of tossing shit back at each other. And I think it's a show full of strong characters, um, who can all kind of hold their own against each other, which I think is super interesting to not have any weak links like that. And I guess one final side character we could talk about is oh man, is it Errol Childress, the killer, who ends up being the killer, at least your lawnmower man?
Right. Yeah, the lawnmower man.
Yeah, especially in the final episode. What did you think of his crazy ass, fucking weird performance as this demented, violent, sadistic? Fuck, I don't even know what else to call him. Mentally handicapped in some regards. At this, I think too, incesty kind of
Yeah.
killer.
It in some aspects it seems like okay, in certain things I wish they would have only had the viewpoint of the detectives and the wife, because having just that last episode almost wasn't enough to really see or understand what was
Sure.
going on with the guy. So I almost felt like it was too little, too late, I guess. I think he did do a good performance. It kind of threw me off why he kept changing his
Mm-hmm.
accent. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like trying to think, okay, is the guy just crazy? Is it like he thinks he sounds one way, like he sounds sophisticated and almost British, but in reality, he's just this country bumpkin that doesn't know what he's talking about? Like I was trying to figure out what it was they were conveying to me, but because it was so inconsistent, I didn't know if it was purposeful or why they were doing it specifically.
Right.
It's sort of like, he has all this imagery and all of these things in this broken down area that's like an old, I mean, it's almost like an old castle, some old brick building. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why did he make it? Why was he luring the detective there? Was he trying to show him? Was it like Manhunter or Red Dragon, depending on which version you watch,
Sure.
where the guy is trying to impress upon the newspaper reporter, I want to show you this is what I'm going to turn into. This is why I'm doing it. And he's like, do you see? And the guy's like, no, I don't understand what it is that you're saying. And it's like I couldn't figure out if that was what they were going for, if they were going for let's just be confusing and not really have a specific thing. What did you think?
Well, I think
Did you
that's
think they were going for
yeah, I think
something?
that's kind of what it was. Maybe they were trying to just go for the confusing, but in a sense ambiguous, I guess, in some way. Where
Yeah.
because now I'm thinking about it, I'm not really, I have to watch it again, sure how to interpret it as him being crazy or him being like uh or him doing it like with intent kind of thing. It'll be interesting. He has that relationship, I guess, with I don't remember if it's his sister or his cousin or something, which is bizarre and weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
Yeah,
the
the
South.
hillbilly part, but
Right.
and then they got like the dad locked up in the other room or something like that. tied to the bed, and so, but he leaves, like you were talking about, that big castle, and he leaves markings everywhere, and he's basically like running through the ruins, like woohoo, come get me, and he's like taunting Rust the entire time.
Right.
So it is a weird, and I do think the ending was a point of contention for a lot of people when it was airing, and in subsequent watches of, is that finale good, I guess, for the rest of the show, especially that final showdown. Is the payoff worth it, I guess? I still think it's fine, but
it's half baked.
Yeah, it does feel that a little bit.
It's like, if the whole point is the well, we didn't catch everyone because authority is just corrupt, and regardless of how many you get, there's still going to be people out there that are this way. It's like, okay, I can see that. That's a down ending. That's a nihilistic ending. That's very noir-esque. So that's understandable. But it's like, also, these down home country Christians would never do things in a cultish fashion.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's these things that are inconsistent and don't make sense with the type of character that you're creating. It's like, this guy lives in a squalid house that is like completely dirty, and like none of the stuff is in order, but then he constructs these crime scenes that are meticulous and intricate. That doesn't make any sense. Like, those two things don't go together.
Right.
It's a guy that does like a ton of art and stuff, and he like paints it all over his house. It's, I don't know. It's like, what is it about this imagery that is interesting to this guy? What is it about the guys selling the drugs and giving the drugs to the people that they were hoping to accomplish? Because you don't go through all that amount of money and trouble to do it for no reason. It's like, it seemed like a very organized way of doing things, and then they had the protection of people in high places.
Right.
It's like, is it just supposed to be like a separate diatribe about religion in general, but they had to divorce it from a known type of religion, and that's why they did it? I don't know. It's like, if the message was a little fuzzy to someone like me who has watched like 10,000 films and countless amounts of TV shows, how's it going to be for someone who doesn't hardly watch anything?
Sure. Or maybe it was like, do you think maybe it was trying to create a sort of parallel between the cult and like a religion? Do you think that could be it at all? I don't know.
I mean, it's very possible.
Like, by showing them both and using them both a little bit, it kind of ties the two together, maybe a little overtly, but it's hard. We're both cutting out a lot too, I think, this time around.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It is hard to, but no, I mean, it's like, it's more the fact that I think it's more of a powerful message if it's a clearer message, if it's going for a message. If you want me to determine what it is I think about it, then you need to be more subtle.
Right.
And it's sort of like it wanted to have both sides. It wanted to say something specific, but then it also wanted me to make my mind about it. And because it didn't do either one of them well, it was just more frustrating and unsatisfying than really hitting me powerfully with the message.
Sure.
But that just could be one of those things where, like, the more things they make, the better off he is at telling that type of story.
Yeah. And at the same time, I do think, I don't know about you, I liked the ending, or I guess the theme of it. It's in a sense almost Lovecraftian, where there's this massive giant evil out there, and just two guys are hopeless to stop that massive giant evil. But if they do their part on a small scale, then is it almost worth it? You can almost.
I mean, that's the thing, is I would have actually liked an ending better if the police. Well, first off, why did the police show up? How did they even know where they were? But anyway,
didn't Woody Harrelson call them?
No, his signal. He didn't have a signal, and he never found a phone. Because remember, he kept telling the lady, like, "Where's the phone? Don't you have a phone in this place?" And he tried to pick up the one phone, but it was unplugged or didn't work. And as far as I know, he never got in contact with anybody.
I'll have to watch it again, but
But let's say that was answered. I think it would have been more interesting if the police showed up, got them, and the guy's like, "Well, did you catch him? Did you find the body? Did you do the thing?" And they said, "There's nobody here. What are you talking about?"
They sweep it under the rug like they did with the shootout.
Yes. That would have been so much more of a better ending. And then they're still at the hospital, and Rust is like, "I feel bad because I didn't get him." And then, Woody's like, "Well, you're just gonna have to deal with it. It's like we're not gonna
Right.
go through this entire thing over again. It basically almost killed you, and we didn't make any progress." It's like I think that would have been a much more interesting ending.
Sure. You don't like the whole idea of in a world of darkness, it looks like the light's winning. Did you like that line?
I did like the line. Like I said, it's not like it's all bad or like I didn't think
Uh-huh.
that they made good points or different things like that, but it's also a little naive,
Sure.
you know, especially coming from Rust. I thought he was a better character than that.
Yeah. You didn't think he had to change a character all the way to there in his years?
Sure,
His character
that's
maybe
fine. It's a little
progressively. I
simplistic.
don't know. Uh
As
yeah,
I think the more that people see about how reality is, the less optimistic they can become. Now, I could
sure.
understand if he decided, the universe out there with all its darkness is actually indifferent and it's not out to try to get us. That might be a change of heart that I could get behind. That makes a lot of sense. That the lightness and the darkness, one isn't good and one isn't evil. It just is. I'm okay with that.
Sure.
You know, but again, I can't tell Pizza, the writer, and the directors what type of thing to make. They make the thing that they want to make, and then I can comment on whether or not it
Right.
affected me as much as what other people's things have affected me.
Sure.
I think this is really good. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's terrible or it's
All
bad.
you've
It's
been doing
really
is
well done.
bashing it
It's
for
really good.
40 minutes, bashing
I
constantly.
bought season 1 and season 2 on Blu-ray.
Wow.
So it's not like
You broke
I
the
don't want
discs
anything to do with it. I'm
immediately
not going to
after.
purchase it. I will watch it again. But the reason why I don't hold this in high esteem as like the greatest show that HBO's ever done, or the greatest story about cops,
Mhm.
or the most interesting type of noir story that there is because those things hold me back from like truly getting involved with it, truly thinking about it and dissecting it. I think once you see the show, you've seen the show. There's not a whole lot more to unpack. There might be like character things
Mhm.
or like things that the author is referencing or like little uh like callbacks to earlier episodes that once you've seen it once and you go back through, you can see those little details. But I think for the big picture stuff and for the point that it's trying to make, I think it was pretty straightforward in what it was trying to do, at least.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
But it's
But
not like The Return where you're still thinking about it a year later.
no, no. Well, that's two different beasts too. This is like a
Right,
story
exactly.
told fully, and that's more of like the fully ambiguous kind of thing.
Right. And but it's like the philosophy of Rust and the visual signs that he had with his hallucinations. There are some Lynchian things in this story.
Mm-hmm. Wait till you see season 2. You want to talk about Lynchian?
Well, I will watch it eventually.
Mm-hmm. It's just because it's the LA neo noir kind of stuff. It feels a little more in line. You'll know when you get there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where else can we go with our shitty connection
I have
tonight?
to say one of my favorite scenes is when they're doing that, not really drug bust, but the drug pickup, and there's that one
Oh fuck!
like uncut shot. Yeah, that is
Oh fuck!
the best one in the
It's the
season.
best. Yeah, it's the best thing on the entire show, without a doubt. It is absolutely incredible. The amount of effort put into that long take, especially if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, is like awesome. The timing that has to go into it, and the execution, and how it's done, and sort of its feel. Feels like you're right in there with them, doesn't it? It's incredible. Like they had to have helicopters fly over at the right time, and like they had to time Woody Harrelson to pull up at the right time, and all of that. Like it's a fully they travel like 2 blocks in the long take, and they had to just follow that entire way. And there's people with like makeup to apply for like bloods and stuff like that, hiding off camera and behind furniture and stuff to pop out when the camera's off of them to put it on bodies and stuff like that. Like it's so well done. It's the best moment in the show from a cinematography direction kind of standpoint, I think. I don't know about you.
No,
That is probably the
I
best
agree.
moment.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's really, really well done. I mean, and it is like that show that you showed me, 19-2.
Right. Oh man. I don't even remember what it's called. That's the only thing I've seen from that. That's a Canadian I'll find it in a sec. Better off to say it than to not say it.
It's
19-2.
yeah.
So
I mean,
19-2, the Canadian
it's
show, right, with the long take of the school shooting.
yeah,
If you watch
of the
that,
school shooting, yeah.
which is
And
also unreal.
right, and that's not on HBO, and like no one talks about it. I don't probably hardly anyone even knows about it outside of Canada. I wouldn't have known about it if you hadn't shown it
Mhm.
to me. So it's I mean, that's one of the things, I mean, especially modern things. It's like people that do films, they're so well versed in what works and how things should look. It's like everything looks professional and everything looks well done.
Sure. And fun fact about that 19-2 one, like I was saying, for anyone not aware of that show, because like you said, not outside of Canada, people would be aware of it. It is a police show. I think its second or third season's opening opens with a school shooting episode, and there's like a 13-minute long take that follows groups of cops as they're clearing out the school, evacuating it, and trying to find and stop the shooters. And it's fucking unbelievable. It's so well done. But that director directed. So that show was originally a French Canadian show. So in Quebec, they had done it and completely in French, and then eventually they did an English remake of it, like still in Canada. But a lot of the same team came over to do the English remake, including that guy. So he basically, and I think the English version is better than the French version, but he did the entire 13-minute long take twice in 2 different episodes, and it's almost the exact same, except he was able to refine it a little bit more in the English language one. So it's just fucking crazy. Imagine doing that twice. He's like, yeah, I've done this before. Yeah, whatever. Just do this here, put this here. Yeah, we're good. The second time around, it probably took them like 3 takes. He's like, no, do it this way and this way and this way. We worked all this out last time. It took us 40 days to shoot it the first time. We're gonna do it in 3. Doing it twice, like that take would be like amazing. And 2 separate things. He has 2 different long takes that you can watch, but they're nearly identical. It's pretty cool. That's my Canadian plug for a show I've barely watched, if anything. I've seen that long.
Yeah, I mean, I looked into buying them, and apparently they're only on DVD, which is disappointing.
Yeah, whatever. That's Canada. Same with Cardinal, which is the show that's shot in my town, is only available on DVD. I would own all 3 seasons of it on Blu-ray because it's shot in my town if it was on Blu-ray. But
yeah, well, maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Hopefully. What do you think about the theme song?
It's awesome. Doesn't it fit you right in the mood for the show? It has that
you know what,
sinister backwoods kind of feel.
It does. It's funny. The very first maybe 2 episodes, I was like, this theme song doesn't really fit because it's not like, I mean, with the Bayou, you would think of like Zydeco music or something like horns. Yeah, it's just a different kind of thing because I've been to Louisiana before. And there's just wanted to say as a brief side point, there are a couple people who really talk like they're from Louisiana in this, and I love that. And then it kind of bugs me after that everyone doesn't talk that way. But anyway,
right.
I was thinking, like, the song almost sounds like it should be from Texas, which is eventually where they say Rust comes from. But it's like after by the 3rd episode, I was really digging it.
Yeah.
So it won me over, and then I enjoyed it the rest of the episodes. I'm thinking like, oh, okay, it really does fit. It does fit with what they're trying to go for. I was just like stuck in it's in the 90s and it's Louisiana, and that's not what it was like there. But and I like I don't even know what the style is called, where it's like superimposed over different pictures.
It's so fucking awesome.
A lot of really
Isn't
good.
it great?
Yeah.
That's such an awesome, like the design of the photographs in the theme song is so cool. All
Yeah,
three
it's like
seasons have that, and it's pretty sick.
having Marty's face with like the road map of the interstate
Yes.
like on his face, and then like there are a lot of like sections that are like crosses and fire, and then you have like Marty's face again with like a stripper superimposed over it.
Yeah. Well, there's
And
the
there's a lot
burning
of really neat things
cross,
that
and Rust like gets up out of
yes.
bed underneath it, kind of thing.
So
Like a destruction of religion.
there's a lot of there's a lot of character and story based things in the actual theme video, and I was like, I like that they did that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you like that theme song, Garrett, because the second season uses a different one completely.
Of course.
Yeah, but honestly, like it threw me for a loop the first time I heard it. But it's and I don't know. I won't spoil it for you what it is, but if threw me for
I
a
need
loop the
it to
first
be
time.
a Depeche Mode song.
A what? You need it to be a what?
A Depeche Mode song.
Oh well, it's not that. But it fits
Much.
it fits in the tone and style of Neon LA, so it's pretty cool. And also Canadian represent in that theme song as well. But I'll talk to you about that when you watch it eventually.
I need to get you to watch Miami Vice.
Mhm.
The show I grew up on.
After
Miami Vice and
Cheers,
Dragon.
Cheers.
That
I'm already trucking through an old show that has 11 seasons.
Cheers is great.
Cheers
I mean,
is
and
hilarious.
it has Woody in it as well.
Woody is in it. Yes, I'm not quite there yet, but I do and don't want Woody to come into it, because I want Woody to come into it because I'm excited to see him in the comedy, and I don't want him to come into it because I don't want to lose Coach.
Yeah, Coach is great.
He's so fucking funny, dude. Sometimes
Norm and Cliff were always like friend goals for me when I was a kid.
Yeah, I know. Yep, I'm not Cliff, buddy. I don't have a mustache. That's the only difference.
You're more like Ted Danson, right?
Yeah, except I'm fucking 5'5".
And you're only 20.
What was Ted Danson, like fucking 89 when that show came out?
Yeah, and he was already a retired like baseball pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
He already had an entire career.
So did I. I'm a retired baseball pitcher.
Yeah, you're more like Carla.
Hey, fuck off! I'll kick your ass. No, if anybody, I'm like Coach, because I just don't know what's going on the entire time. God damn it!
I don't know if I'm represented by anyone in that show.
Norm. Except you don't drink a lot, though. And you're also not an accountant. But you do come here every week.
Yeah.
Sit in the same spot.
Everyone knows my name. It's
all one of us.
Dr. Peeper.
We'll have to do a TV theme songs or episode or something. Speaking of True Detective's awesome theme song, and then Cheers has like one of the best ones ever. God.
Everybody knows your name.
That's it. What did you think of the part where they go and rescue the children, and there's the big shootout as they're describing what totally happened, but didn't?
Oh, happen. You mean the Rashomon episode?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I like that. I like that they said one thing and then it showed the other thing.
It showed what actually happened, and that they were just covering it up.
Yeah. And how both their stories were the same.
Mm-hmm. Like they totally,
but it was like, yeah, but there was a reason for it being told that way too. And I like that. It wasn't just that they were I mean, it's like even Russ says at some point, not that they are good people, but that they have to be bad in order to keep the bad people out.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of mentality. I mean, I don't in real life, I don't like that mentality, but in a show,
Right.
I think it fits and makes sense. I don't want cops to be bad people, but I think in
No.
a show like this, it works.
Yeah, but unfortunately they are in real life. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is they're humans too, and there are good humans and bad humans. So you're
Yeah,
gonna get the same
absolutely.
diversity in anything.
Did you have any other favorite bits at all?
Any other I like Rust and his living situation.
Mm-hmm. The
Where
mattress
it's
on the
like,
floor.
yeah, mattress on the floor, like he would just put case files up on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like at one time Marty says, "Do you even know this place has an upstairs?" You it's like he would just basically use the kitchen and the bedroom or the living room as his bedroom.
Right.
Um, you and it was kind of like I think so many things go to the establishment of character in the show, and I can really appreciate that because I mean it goes with its strength. It has a richness of character, so you go with that. So I like those types of situations where if it's like what the guys wear or how they act outside of it. I mean, I think one of my favorite bits too was Rust and Marty are supposed Rust is supposed to go over to Marty's house to meet his wife and his kids and like have dinner. It's a thing that like everybody does when they're partners,
Right.
but he has to get like sloshed in order to even go over there.
Yeah. That's a great scene when he's out front his house too.
Yeah, and it's like him and Marty's wife, the chemistry and how they talk to each other, they hit it off really well, and that's portrayed really well
Mm-hmm.
about how they're actually able to be honest with each other.
Right.
And then it also shows a bit of Marty's character lying in order to try to get him out of the house because he thinks that's going to help him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just there's a lot of things like that I think are really interesting.
It all comes from
I
the
think that
characters, really.
yeah.
That's where the show
So
is so strong, isn't its characters? Everything kind of comes
so it's
from
like
that.
there's not so many scenes specifically that just stick out as being like flashy. I mean, other than that one, the technique of like having one long shot and things like that. But it's like it's really if you look at it as a movie with 8 parts or 10 parts, however many episodes there were, and look at it as a whole, it's like the characters are what stand out.
Sure. Yeah. And you're not boring me, sorry. I just yawned
No,
in the
that's fine.
middle.
No, I was trying to
Absolutely
remember how
same.
many
There's 8 of
episodes
them.
there were. Okay, there is 8. All right.
It really is. It really comes down to the characters. And I think if the show didn't have nearly as strong of the dual leads or actors or characters, I don't think it would be anything, really. I don't think it would have went
Right.
anywhere. And I think that as great as they may be in the second season, I don't think any of them live up to McConaughey, certainly, but either of the two in this season. Colin Farrell's good. Rachel McAdams is good. Vince Vaughn is. It depends if you like Vince Vaughn, which I'm pretty sure you do, but I don't know. He's less Brawl and Cell Block 99 Vince Vaughn and more and more.
Vince Vaughn isn't Vince Vaughn except in S. Craig movies.
Vince Vaughn. What is he in that? He's like a mob boss in that one or something. I don't know. Taylor Kitsch kind of sucks, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yep, but then Mahershala Ali's good in season 3.
And I like him
Dorff.
just in everything.
He's just great in general. Stephen Dorff is also good in season 3, except it's more of a one-man show in season 3 than in the other 2 seasons. But
it's kind of hilarious. I am not a fan of Colin Farrell except in Yorgos movies.
Right, and then
So it's like they keep hiring these actors that I only care about in like 1 or 2 things they do.
yeah. God.
They need to cast Viggo Mortensen or
See, that would be awesome though. If he did
Gary Oldman.
They should do like Jim Carrey should do it. Detective.
Jim Carrey's been in some terrible stuff too, though.
He had that failed one. Well, that's what I'm saying. We need a Carrey-assance, like Jim Carrey's Renaissance. Like he's really good on the Showtime show, Kidding. That's kind of on right now. I think it's in the off season right now, but that's why I said kinda.
We need a show with like about an FBI agent and it could star Colin McLaughlin. That's what we need.
You always find a way to shoehorn it in, don't you? Every single time.
I feel like I have to now that you put that in every description.
I took it out of last week, by the way.
Oh, well, see?
Because I did it when it
Whatever
was
you bring up, it's always Sunny in every single episode.
I really don't, but you just brought it up, so let's talk about Sunny.
Mr. Shitter.
Oh, God. Shut up, Dr. Pooper. What else is there in this show, fuckhead? What about the rest of the music? Did you like the rest of the soundtrack, other than the theme song? Because I think it's really moody and it fits the...
Yeah, it does fit. It's really moody, but honestly, after the episode, I didn't really think about the music very much.
No. There's a couple ones that I listen to, they're just in playlists. It's not like
it's not like Tangerine Dream.
No. It's not like Angelo. Oh, Angelo. Oh, God.
No, and it's like I said, it's like if it would have taken place in the 50s and 60s, it would have made a lot more sense, some of the stuff that was going through, or if it had taken place like in the 80s when there was that like satanic scare that like everyone was concerned that there would be ritualistic sacrifices and the police didn't know how to handle it. But it's like by the time this took place, even in the backwoods country of Louisiana, it's like ritualistic sacrifices. Yeah, the FBI would have been brought in on this, especially if there's anything that involves any type of like sadistic or it's like anything that was like signs of it happening more than once, it would have definitely been brought in.
Sure. I guess one last thing we can talk about too is I know you're stone cold, nothing really bothers you. I don't know, Cannibal Holocaust probably didn't bother you, did it? Just watching it recently.
I laughed.
But this one does deal with children in some aspects, which can be a little upsetting to some people.
Sure.
They really don't show too much, but I think they showed the perfect amount in that VHS footage that Marty watches late into the show. I think they showed the perfect amount to where you know exactly what is happening, and then you can fill in the blanks with everything else.
Yeah, it's kind of like Seven in that respect.
Sure. It knows what to show and what not to show in order to make it like almost scarier in a sense. It's not quite horror, but like it's a horrifying element for sure. And I think seeing Woody Harrelson's reaction to some of the more grisly parts in that tape, and then subsequently like him asking Marty, "You watched this?" and he goes like, "Well, I had to." Like, it's kind of interesting too. Certainly sort of dark. Anything kind of dealing with children and in this sense is pretty dark.
I would say if you are a fan of true crime or watch like those kind of documentaries, nothing in this is going to be surprising to you. But just like your regular average TV show viewer, then yeah, I would imagine that they probably are either grossed out or they will cover their eyes or something, even though it doesn't really show anything. Yeah.
No.
But
and I think Seven is a great comparison for this show. I think it even more so than Fincher's show, Mindhunter. I think this really inhibits. That's not the word. Really like brings out that same tone that Seven had in the 90s. And
do you want to guess when Seven came out? 1995.
When's this one set? 1990. Wow. Yeah, it does feel like that, like a lot. So, and now I think I guess one last point, if you want, Pizzolatto is the writer. We call him Pizza, but he was a novel writer. Can you kind of tell that in some of the character stuff?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I think we talked about it. Oh, when did we talk about it? In another podcast, we were talking about novel writers and how kind of they come across and their characters come across. Well, when we did Brawl, probably, because we were talking about S. Craig Zoller and his characters and such. But he's kind of notorious in a sense for wanting full control over this show. To the point where he was fighting with I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, Fukunaga, about a lot of stuff, especially like the long take. Pizza wanted it cut up. He didn't want it to be a full long take, but Fukunaga said, like, if there's nothing interesting visually at some point in the show, it's going to be dinged for that 100%. So I do think that he's a very good director. Have you seen Beasts of No Nation?
I have not.
That's a Netflix film with Idris Elba. It was directed by this guy, and it's quite good. It really does make me feel like a lot of the sort of more restraint in some of the direction in this show does come from Pizza's input and trying to get it to be more about the writing and less about the direction. But you know, I take issue with that a little bit. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I really think it can be both, but whatever. Pizza directs a lot of the episodes now, so I guess he kind of ended up taking control anyway. So season 3 suffered in that sense too. And he says it's scheduling conflicts, but what's he going to do? Come out and bash the guy? But I'm pretty sure Jeremy Saulnier dropped season 3 of True Detective, which he was supposed to direct in its entirety, like Fukunaga did for season 1. I'm pretty sure, I have a gut feeling that he dropped it because Pizza was trying to force certain things to happen instead of just letting him do his own thing. And he says it's scheduling issues, but I don't know if I really buy into that. I don't know. Scheduling with what is my thing? With the Hold the Dark? Like, I guess, but why would he book both of them at the same time? If he was going to originally do the entire 3rd season, why would he have Hold the Dark ready to go kind of thing? Beats me. Do you think that kind of comes across though at all? Maybe it is Pizza restraining in the direction, or is it me having seen other stuff from Fukunaga and seen the rest of the show that I can kind of see that?
Well, I mean, it's a business,
Mm-hmm.
and Pizza is also an executive producer, and so he might
So
have
is
very
Fukunaga in all
yeah.
3
So
seasons, to
that
the point where he actually, I think Pizza's salty enough, and I love the guy. If he ends up listening to this direction or listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, I'm bashing you. I love your work or whatever. But of all the executive producers you have in the fucking theme songs in season 2 and season 3, there's only one you fucking leave out and leave in the end credits, and that's Fukunaga. So it kind of makes you look a little bit petty when every single executive producer has their own card in the opening credits for season 2 and 3, except Fukunaga, who you bury at the back. Makes you look just a little bit petty about the first season. But I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it too much and getting a little heated. Can you tell I'm getting a little heated?
yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, it's like trying to put myself in his shoes. If I wrote something and had a very clear idea of what something was, I thought I would probably want to steer. Of course, I'd probably just direct the damn thing myself.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that he did end up directing the damn thing, which is, you know,
yeah,
all the power to him. If you want to direct the episodes, go right ahead, and he does.
you know. So it's like I can understand both ways. I can understand them saying we think this will make us more money or make us more popular, or these are the notes that HBO is giving us. I don't know how all that behind the scenes stuff is. Um, they may want a specific type. Maybe it's one of those things where he wants to make 10, 11 seasons, and maybe someone else goes, if I make 1 or 2 that's really good, that's what I want to do. Use all my ideas, and maybe he wants to spread it out. I have no idea.
That's what he wants to do, is that kind of stuff. Because season 2 was forced on him by HBO to do it the next year, but he wanted to take a break.
So I mean, and he wrote other novels that other people have like directed, and I heard that the ratings on those aren't very good. I haven't seen them,
Right.
but so
I
who
think
knows?
it's maybe it's a case of the wall kind of thing, where you had Fukunaga and Pizza, both of them had kind of equal stakes in the pie in terms of executive producing and then director or writer, and both of them wanted full control and were unwilling to give it up. I'm just happy that that long take is fully intact. I think if that got cut up, it'd be almost like, well, why even have that director then? Because it kind of,
Right.
the entire series does give Pizza's writing a lot of time to shine, and it certainly does shine a lot. and then having that long take. And I would argue the shootout as well. Kind of makes up for it a little bit. And he, at the end of the day, Fukunaga did get his big moment. And after that episode aired, he got his Netflix film. Like, he knew that it was going to be big, and just didn't want to be like that hack director, I think, that just kind of lazed his way through and shot an interesting script boringly. I think he wanted to make it something bigger, but who knows? Behind the scenes drama happens in a lot of things, and unless you're in the shit, I don't think you can really know what actually happened.
Right. Yep.
Like, I don't want it to seem like I'm bashing Pizza. Like, I guess, like I said again, like I said earlier, like, I love the guy's writing on season and 2 and 3, and I'll watch 4 whenever it happens. And he is directing. He directs a lot in 2. He directs a lot in 3. So all the power to him. He wanted to take control. He took control, and I don't hate any of it. It's just an interesting story to go along with this this series, I suppose. It's not really troubled production, but it's just kind of an added layer of drama, I suppose.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else?
No, I can't think of anything. I definitely would like to see the next 2 seasons at some point. I own the second season now because it's in the box set of 1 and 2 together.
Mm-hmm. 3 just ended.
I will definitely, yeah.
You're definitely gonna check it out, though. That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to tell me when you do.
Especially since they are, and maybe everyone doesn't know this if they've only watched 1. They are different stories.
Yeah.
So
It's an
the first
anthology
one
series.
is ended, and then that's it for the first one, unless they come back later and change something. But
I can neither confirm nor deny anything.
Uh-oh.
I'm not going to tell you what's going on. You can fucking watch it for yourself.
So where can they find us?
Well, you can go fuck yourself. How about that? First off. I was forgetting if there was something else that I wanted to say off the top or no. As a one last thing. Yeah, I guess kind of in conclusion, watch the show. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. Garrett probably highly recommends it, but a little less than I highly recommend it. Is that an accurate summation?
Yeah. I would recommend it.
You would strongly recommend it, but not highly recommend it. That's a 1 tier lower. Strongly.
I didn't even say strongly, did I?
He would not recommend it unless you want to watch it. Then go ahead.
No, I wouldn't even say that I wouldn't recommend it. I would say that I would recommend it.
Garrett gives it 1 thumb up when I give it 2. Or is that even too much? Anyway, never mind. Instead of 1 thumb up, you just go, yep.
No, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, blind recommendations, it depends on what someone has seen as to whether or not they will either appreciate it or if they have seen too much of the same thing already. I think that it depends on what someone has seen, and what types of things they like as to whether or not that they are really going to enjoy this. I think if someone hears this is the greatest cop show of all time, no, it's not that at all. If it's like, if you really like Matthew McConaughey, you will probably like him in this, even though he's playing somebody a bit different than what you're used to. He does a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Woody Harrelson, he plays Woody Harrelson type characters in this. He does a really good job. I think you're going to like it. I think if just in general you like procedurals or cop stories, I think you will like it. I don't think there's necessarily a lot of new things you're going to find in this, but it's definitely good. It's a good, solid, well done TV show. It's not going to change a lot of things. It's not necessarily even going to stick with you a long time afterwards, but it's really well done and it's certainly worth checking out. So I would recommend it for that, because it's definitely worth watching.
Sure. That's fine. That sounds good. Yep. I would be the same. I would recommend. There we go. If you listen to this podcast all the way through and didn't watch it, I think there's a lot more to unpack in the characters than we talked about. I think it's a matter of watching it and seeing kind of the characters unfold and the arcs unfold for yourself. Yep. So do that if it interests you, if you haven't watched it already, if you made it to the end of the podcast and we spoiled the shit out of it. If you like the show, you can find us here every single week. We talk about our favorite movies and what we like about them and what makes them so great, and also TV shows sometimes, I guess, and sometimes music in the case of The Wall. Weird. We do everything now, don't we, Garrett? Everything. If you do like the show, you can follow us on Twitter at digital_podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Alex's Reviews, and you can follow Garrett on Twitter at Garrett DiNardo. You can also subscribe to the show on YouTube, which is, of course, as we've alluded to in the past weeks, where we are planning to make a primary source of our content from here on out. Eventually, it'll be uploading there at the same time as anywhere else that we may be uploading. And we also have some exclusive video content and other fun stuff coming within the coming months. Is that it? Is that all the stuff? For some reason, I feel like I'm missing something. It's been a long time since we did one of these. I don't remember.
I don't know. You're cutting out so much, you could have missed something. I
Well,
wouldn't fucking know.
whatever then. Fine. Bitch, fine. We don't have a plan for what we're doing next week, but we'll figure it out later. Fuck it. That's all I say on this show is just fuck it over.
Fair enough.